And welcome to Voices Carry on the Voices Carry Radio Network. This is Terry Todd, and I'm welcoming you along this evening with my lovely and talented co-host, Miss Mary J. How you doing, Miss Mary?
I'm doing wonderful. It's 77 here today, after it was 29 yesterday. So I'm happy.
I bet you are. That's wonderful. I know those warm temperatures sure make your knees feel good, don't they?
They sure do.
Oh, I'm telling you. So you've been hanging in there and doing pretty good lately?
I have.
Good. Glad to hear that. Got a lot of interesting things going on my side of the fence, but we'll kind of deal with that a little bit later. My younger brother Rick passed away on Tuesday, which was yesterday morning, back in Texas. And so that's kind of not a new thing, but something I haven't done for a while is dealing with funeral directors and that sort of thing. Speaking of which, next week our guest is a funeral director. So that ought to be an interesting conversation.
It should be, since, my friend had passed away and his service is Saturday. So, yeah. Wow.
I've always thought it was interesting when people involved in the paranormal have a death close to them like that, because it's bound to bring up, thoughts and interesting things and so on when you work with that. And, most of my stuff that I dealt with in the past was like more evil, demonic type stuff. But nevertheless, when you lose someone close to you, you can't help but wonder, are they going to be one of those that stick around for a while, or did they go on, or, what the situation? So it's kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and I've never, in all the years that I was communicating with spirits, not one of my loved ones ever came to me. I guess it's something like being a doctor, You don't treat your own family. Is that?
Well, not only that. To me, that would be a good thing, because that doesn't. They're not earthbound. They've gone on. So
right.
So to me, that would be a good thing. But other than that, I've just been as lively as a three-toed tree sloth on Thorazine here lately, and just pulling things out and working. And every time I try to talk to somebody on the phone, I get a call coming through from Texas, and I have to get on there and deal with funeral directors and things like that. So, but just kind of interesting situation when it happens, I guess, to you like that.
No, I'm sorry for your loss, but
well, I appreciate that.
We both have the same outlook, that he's in a better place. And
absolutely. And it's like I told you the other day, my family looks at death much differently than most people. I don't fear death. I have no problem with death or dying, anything of that nature. One of my best friends is Daniel Brinkley, who, has died and come back a few times. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records, a person who was dead and came back the longest. And he has some interesting stories about, what happens when you die. So I have absolutely no fear of death whatsoever. And, when I'm the last person left in my family. All of my brothers have gone on, my mom and my dad, grandparents, everybody's gone now except me. I'm the last one. And that's a little weird. I got to tell you, that's a little bit weird. But other than that, I don't, have any problem with death or any of that nature. So it's just kind of, like I said, it's interesting when it happens to you. And I see so many people that are dealing with death with a family member that are going through such agony and such pain. And I'm going, you need to realize that it's not as bad as it seems. It's bad on you, but to the person, it's not that big of a deal. They've gone on, they're happy. Did you ever read a book called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers?
No, I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
You really should read it. It's a very, very interesting book, and it deals with kind of the paranormal field about this woman whose brother, whose name was Billy Fingers, died, and he came back to visit her, quite often, and spent time with her and so on, and he would tell her stories about what was going. It's really, really a cool book. So anybody that's listening, if you want something interesting to read, go get the Afterlife of Billy Fingers. It's a really cool book. But getting beyond that a little bit, we have a pretty wonderful, decent guest tonight. Most of our guests are not. No, I'm kidding. But Stan Fikes told me a few months ago. He said you really need to get this guy Jack Kenna to come on your show, and he said we dealt with him on some stuff with Web Paranormal, and he's a really great guy, be a great guest. And so before I knew it, I contacted Jack, and I found out. After I had booked Jack, I found out that Stan has also got him booked on Wiregrass Haunts at some point in the near future. I believe that's right. But at any rate, let us go ahead. Excuse me. Let us go ahead and bring in our guest for tonight. Jack, are you with us? Jack Kenna.
I am here. I was just listening to you. I'm waiting for to get introduced first. So I don't like to be rude and step on things, but yes, I am booked for Wiregrass. Yeah, the other Wiregrass Haunts. Yeah, I'm coming up. Actually, it's not so much longer. So
and you're sitting up there in Massachusetts.
Actually, it's the 1st of May. Actually,
yeah, and you're sitting up there in Massachusetts, going, "What the heck is Wiregrass?"
Well, actually, I'm in Rensselaer, New York. So
you're in New York.
Yeah, yeah. You got a little confusion there, and I'll explain that later on. So, okay. I'm a how do we say? I'm a member of many and a founder of few. So,
okay. But I was the best way.
Yeah, I don't want to be a founder of any paranormal team. To be honest with you, too much work involved there. But yes, the team, Spirits of New England, is based out of Winthrop, Massachusetts, and I came along on the team about a year after they created the team, and ran into them at an event up in New Hampshire with Jason and Grant. They were running up there at the time, and they kind of took me in. I always say they found me on the street and they took me in. I was a stray. They took me in and made me work. So
there you go.
It's like we found somebody to review all that evidence. Okay, do it.
Well, you know something that's interesting about that. I'm originally from Texas. I live in Alabama now. Miss Mary she's originally from Connecticut, but she lives in North Carolina. Oh. And Stan and I live down here in Alabama, and to us down here in Alabama, it seems like that New England is just the epicenter for hauntings and ghosts and things of that nature.
That's only because we all, they started America there. That's why. Except Virginia. Virginia was the original found. Yeah, it was the original colony founded. Right?
Do you think that has something to do with it? That part of the country's older than other parts? Or
I think that does have a little bit to do with it. I mean, you can't rule that out completely. So I think it does. I think it does have something to do with it, which is why we all really want to go overseas, because that's where all the old stuff is,
Yeah.
Right.
All those castles and everything else.
Oh yeah, and we've had John Zappis on our show many times, and John, we've always talked to John about that fact that down here, and John spends a lot of time down here in the South, but he talks about that. It just seems like there's much more activity up in the New England and that part of the country. And, of course, he was lucky enough. He got to go to England and Scotland with Ed and Lorraine Warren, his aunt and uncle, back in the 80s. So, but that's just pretty cool. I'm interested to find out how a guy who's, belongs to a group called the Spirits of New England and is a paranormal investigator and stuff. How did you end up on Haunted Case Files? How did that happen? Did they come to you? Did somebody put you in touch with them? How did that work?
I'll tell you the whole story. It really started off with Paranormal Survivor, which is the first show this production company ever made. Mm-hmm. Anyways, all right. So, it became part of Spirits of New England. We started doing a lot of stuff. We do a lot of residential cases and stuff. So for quite a few years, we've been doing a lot of stuff. And we started, like a lot of people, I guess, they started hitting the East Coast at one time with I think back in 2014, lots of emails from all these places saying they're going to make new shows and whatever. And we ignored most of them. But this one email came through from this company called Our House Media. And it was fairly long and lengthy, and it described everything. It gave a link to their website. So I checked it out. And it's like, wow, they make a lot of reality type shows, none of which this was going to be their very first paranormal show. It was going to be called Paranormal Survivor. Actually, I don't even think it was going to be called that at the time. It was something else, Paranormal Investigator. I forget what it was supposed to be. They ended up changing the name. But I talked to Ellen, our team founder. I said, what do you think, Ellen? You want me to give him a call? There's a phone number there. I can give him a call. She said, yeah, go for it. See what's going on. See what they want. So I did. I called the number, and I ended up talking to the woman on the phone there, the point of contact there, for over 2 hours. And what I liked was she answered all my questions. And because I had a lot, obviously, and then she asked me a bunch of questions. We kept talking, we kept chatting. She goes, Jack, we'd really like, I think, to have you on the show. Do you have a story? And she told me what Paranormal Survivor was about, which is really about the people who survived, hauntings, right? And I'm like, well, so we did a case a year ago in Rhode Island. I said, they're a younger couple, maybe they might be interested in telling their story. So I contacted them, and they were excited about it. So I said, okay. So we got in touch with them, and they told their story, and they wanted the investigators' perspective on things. And so because they had contacted with me first, they asked me to do it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I said, we'll see how it all goes. They don't get paid for any of that. They came actually not far from me in Albany area here. I'm in Rensselaer, New York. And they filmed down here, and we had a good time. The production crew was great. There was only like 6 people. They set up all their stuff, and we filmed with them and had a great time. So then you wait, and you go, okay, let's see how they really do this, right? How's they really going to play this when the show comes out, right? Because you never know, right? I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to make it. We didn't say the D word one time, by the way, and that kind of oh, you sure it wasn't demonic? No, I'm not saying it. No, I'm not saying it. So we watched the show. Show comes on. They did a really great job telling the couple story, and they didn't play up anything too much. And they told 90% of what they told was a true story, and some of the real evidence that we captured and all that. So they did a wonderful job with it. I was very pleased. So I thought that was going to be it. And then about maybe 6 months later, I get another call. Jack, we're going to do season 2 of Paranormal Survivor. We want you on it. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, I got to see if I got somebody else's story to tell. So we had just done another case, and I asked those people, and they wanted to tell their story. And then that one went really well. And then a few months go by, and I get an email from a friend of mine. I said, Jack, Cheryl Knight's her name. She goes, Jack, somebody keeps sending me emails to our account. And she goes, these are for you. And I look at it, it says Our House Media. And I'm like, where the hell did they get your email from? And I said, they had my phone number and everything else. So I call her back. I call her and she goes, Jack, we've been trying to get a hold of you for weeks. I said, well, you've been contacting the wrong people. I said, you got my phone number and stuff, don't you? I filled out all that paperwork. So she goes, oh, God, our mistake. So anyways, so they asked me to do season 1 of Haunted Case Files. And they were like, we really want you to come on. We really want you to do it. The producer really wants you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And we ended up going up to Toronto to film those, and it was strictly just about paranormal teams. What you've seen on there, and our cases. In some of our cases, we filmed 6 cases, which is maximum per investigator they typically do. And then so we had a great time with that, and they did a really nice job with it all. And I've gotten to know a lot of the other people on the show since then. Michelle DeRoche, who's a wonderful lady, great psychic medium.
Oh yeah,
and,
I know Michelle. She's sweet.
Yeah, she's a doll. And matter of fact, when we were up there just filming, we just filmed season 2 actually a few weeks ago, and I just met her up there after one of the things. We just all had dinner together and hung out and all that. So yeah, but they're great people. Our House Media is a production company. They're great people to work with. They're honest with you. They help you out, and I've helped them out on a couple other the Paranormal Survivor shows, even though I wasn't on them. I was able to actually help them find some people that had stories for the show and stuff like that. So we had a really good rapport going, and that's how it fell into place. Yeah, we contacted them through an email, and we've been on their paranormal shows since day 1, and we're still going.
That's great.
And the reason I really like this. Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say the reason I really like being on the shows, they don't pay you much or anything like that, and I really wouldn't care anyway. But it helps us to reach out to more people and more people to reach back to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we can help, and we do get a lot more cases that way. And I get contacts from all over the country, so I try to find, because I don't know every team out there, so sometimes these people are too far away, so I try to find them a team that's local that can help them out.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I'm doing a similar thing through my Facebook page, that we're helping people to locate, decent paranormal groups and so on. So
Right.
I think that's something that's needed in today. Mary, before the show, we were talking with Jack about his kind of expertise thing with the empathic sort of psychic type things, and that's kind of your wheelhouse. Would you like to talk to Jack a little bit about that and discuss some of the differences and samenties that you guys have?
Sure.
Is samenties a word? I don't know.
I don't know, but I understood it. That's the scary part of it all. I understood it. It made sense.
It did.
You've been spending too much time with me.
It's a new dictionary word now. There you
go. When I did all this, it's not like I turned that part off of anything, but I used to have problems. Like going into a shopping mall was like craziness for me because I was picking up on people. Now, you were talking about protecting yourself. I had never learned how to shield myself from all that. What kind of advice, what do you do when you want to turn it off?
All right. Well, when I started, realizing, all that, and I guess I used to just try to ignore stuff and things like that. So a psychic friend of mine taught me how to connect with it all. But one of the first things she taught me was protection. She goes, before we start getting into a lot of this, I want to show you how to shield yourself and how to block things out. And they're very simple things. If you have a good, decent imagination, all you got to do is either, she does a lot of white light work, which I use, which I either envision a bright white light pushing all, envision everything is black, and you vision that white light pushing all that darkness away, just pushing everything away. Sometimes it's even just, I got somebody who's talking to me at work and they're just, all gloom and doom about whatever, nothing to do with work. I start envisioning the bright light pushing them away, go away, and sometimes it works. It's like, well, I guess I better get back to work. Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, so do I. So I just envision that, or sometimes I'll envision a brick wall. And with nothing able to get through it. I mean, some of it's just simple techniques, and I think just naturally I just block things out because I can go into
because it can be exhausting.
Yeah, to me it's only exhausting when I'm on investigations and something's trying to come through and I really don't want it to, and I just keep trying to block it. Then it gets exhausting. But for the most part, I don't know. I think I have a natural way to just kind of shut it off and kind of ignore it. Maybe from years of just trying to ignore it anyway, from probably the time I was a kid. So I can, be someplace that's like, oh, geez, this place is really haunted. Yeah, I got nothing. Of course, I haven't opened up yet either, so I'm totally ignoring it.
Yeah, got nothing.
No. Sometimes I'll feel something and I'll just go, nope. All right. So, because I'm in the middle of doing something else that's paranormal related. So I don't want to deal with it. I'm just like, no, not going to talk to you. Unless I think I'm getting a message for somebody that, I ran into or I'm talking to, then it gets where it gets a repeated word again and again and again. It gets louder and louder and louder until I tell them. And then we start having a conversation about, this person who passed or whatever. That
I remember those feelings.
Yeah,
they can be pretty insistent on getting through.
Yeah. So when it's insistent like that, I'll say something. Okay, here, I'll give you your message. I'll give the message across. And then it starts to. I let it just flow through after that. I find if you just let it flow, once that happens, it's less of a strain on you. It's just because you're just letting it go through. And there's something interesting. This is something that happened during, and maybe you noticed it on the one show on Haunted Case Files, or maybe you didn't. There was a show we did an episode about Jamaica Plain, and a spirit that was, had made contact with us, and turns out she had a story to tell, and before we left that location, I promised her we'd somehow tell her story. And we really believe that, her story was, her name was Hannah. She had been raped by a family member. This was back in like the 1700s, right? So that had happened to her. So, but she had been raped. She had a baby. They took the baby away. She never saw it again. We did find information on a baby that was born by the name of Mary. And it's only meant that particular baby is only mentioned in one family Bible. There's no other mention of her anyplace else in any of the other documents. For all the other kids that were born in the family, there's all kinds of information on them, even if they were born and died within a day, right? But that one Mary, only mentioned one time, no place else, as if she was wiped from, existence. So, so while I'm sitting there telling this story on Haunted Case Files with the production crew, sitting there asking me, then the producer asked me one question. She goes, "We're talking about that," and she goes, "Well, what do you think? What do you really think happened?" And I don't know, something just snapped. I actually think Kenna came through me. And I said, "What do I think happened? What do I really think happened? This is what I really." And they're like, "Wow, okay." And I start telling the story, and I start breaking down. I'm crying. Right. And, and they're like, oh, you see their jaws drop. And they're like, by the time I'm done, they just let me roll with it because boom, it all came out. Right. And by the time they're done, I could felt just overwhelmed. And then once it was out, boom, I'm back to normal. And they're like, Mr. Kenna, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's fine. You sure? Yeah. And then I told them what I thought had just happened. They're like, yeah, because you didn't really totally seem yourself there for a minute. But I think in one way, after I had made the promise to Hannah that I would tell that story somehow, some way, I think she came back through and knew what was going on and told it herself almost in a way. And I let her, right? I just let it through. And I was fine right after that. So that's why I say sometimes you just got to let it go and let it through. And, it just goes through you. They tell what they need to tell. They get out what they need to say, and you're good.
Right.
You're good, too, because you don't feel exhausted or anything. You just, okay, I'm good. You're fine after that. So, but at the same time, I don't think you're really letting them control you. You're just telling what they want to say, and you're just letting it flow.
Right. I remember before I used to go on cases, sometimes a spirit associated with that family would kind of like hang out with me for the day.
Oh, really?
Cool. And I would get all these things. And then one I remember in particular, because it had to do with food. I kept, everything is about food with me. It was the apple pie. And I kept smelling apple pie. But it wasn't like your normal. It was like this scrumptious, like I could almost taste it, apple pie. And sure enough, when we got to the client's home that night, I said, I'd been smelling this apple pie all day long. She goes, my grandmother, that was her specialty. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And then, of course, there was a whole barrage of stuff that happened after.
Yeah.
They must consult their appointment books, though. Oh, so she's going to be here at this certain time so we can show up. It's amazing how that happens.
Well, if you talk to the clients on the phone, I always believe spirit knows what's going on. They're listening, right? Right. She's talking to somebody on the phone. Let me listen in on this one, and that goes for anything that you're dealing with, whether it's just a spirit or whether it's something demonic or whether it's whatever, it's listening. And I do believe that's why a lot of times we have, investigations scheduled and all of a sudden activity just slows to a stop. Like a week before we're going, and oh, Mr. Kenna, I don't know if you should come. There's nothing happening. Oh no, I need to come. Trust me.
Right.
We know what's going on. Trust me, I'm coming anyway. But nothing's happened. I don't care because it's going to happen.
They go into hiding.
They do. Well, they like to pretend. I think they like to pretend that, no, nothing's happening. You don't have to be bothered to come help people. It's okay.
Right.
Like, yeah, right.
They want to stay there. They stake their claim.
Right. Exactly. So they're worried you're going to throw them out or something. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. It just depends. It depends on what's going on and what you're dealing with. So. But I find it fascinating. You actually get stuff ahead of time. I never get anything until I get there. Now, again, that could be me just blocking out without really thinking about it.
Yeah, because I was never a blocker. And that's why I got into all the trouble I got into. I was like this open beacon, like, you want to talk to me? Come on. And they did, and they hung on, and which resulted in a deliverance and an exorcism because I had no control.
Right. And that's what we were talking about. You have to know how to protect yourself from that. And some of that's doing meditation prior to going on an investigation or anything like that, and just learning how to block things out when you don't want it, and be forceful about it. Sometimes you got to be, no, don't come near me. I'm not letting, it's just like people, in some ways, just like people. Now, if you're dealing with something truly demonic, which are few and far between, well, it's a lot stronger than we are. So you got to look to, your higher, belief system to help you there.
Absolutely.
And even sometimes that doesn't work either, but you have to have it, it can keep things at a minimum, at least anyway. So yeah, I would try, do you do that now? Do you use the white light, envisioning the white light, pushing things away?
No, I pray.
Praying's good too. Yeah. But do that. Well, you can do that at the same time. You can pray, you can use your faith and envision the white light as being your faith and your belief in God or whatever.
That's good.
That's
I like that.
Pushing that away. That's part of what I do at times too. I mean, to me, the white light. I mean, I'm Roman Catholic, so to me, the white light is God and the angels, and that's what's pushing all that darkness away. Everybody has their own belief systems, and I tell people stick with what works for you. I'm not here to convert anybody to anything, so let's not worry about that.
No, me either. I'm strong in my faith, but I respect whatever works for people.
Exactly, and that's what you have to do. You have to respect other people's beliefs and things, but in the end, we all believe in something that's more than ourselves.
Exactly.
And that's
unless you're Zach. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to rabbit trail.
I don't know the guy, yeah.
We
himself. I know that much. He does believe himself,
We were talking about this last night to some point. To me, a person has to have some sort of a belief in God or something, or else you shouldn't be doing this because you have to be protected. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's part of what I talk about in my lectures. When I give lectures, it's like, if you really want to get into doing the paranormal stuff, or you just want to be involved with it, or even if not, it's important to have faith in something, to be grounded in something. Because if you believe in nothing, I can convince you to believe in anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
You have to have a strong belief, and just especially in the paranormal field, because we're really talking about here is a spiritual realm.
Yes,
we're dealing with the spiritual. We're not just dealing with pieces with equipment and talking to something that makes a K2 flash. Okay, what is that? I don't know. You're talking about dealing with spirits, demons, elemental spirits, all kinds of stuff that can have an impact on you. So you better be grounded in a faith of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
I joke at those and go, look, believe in something. I don't care if you believe in Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse is going to save you no matter what. If you really believe that, it just might work. All right. But the point is, believe in something. Believe in your pet rock. I don't know, whatever works for you. But and people laugh and it's a joke really. But the point always is you have to find something you can truly believe in, you are comfortable with, that you like, and that is a positive in nature. You don't want to go to Satanism. Right? We don't want to do that, all right? But
sure.
We want to go a positive direction here, So it's 100% important. You can't do this stuff without having faith and belief in something better, higher than yourself.
Absolutely. And I think because I feel so strongly about that is because I have dealt so much in the demonic field, over the years and in the past and so on, because I mean, Mickey Mouse against the demon is not going to do much. So you have to, but I understand what you're saying. And, and I'm not, we don't, on this show, we don't do stuff. Oh, when did you realize you were psychic? I'm not going to do that. But I did want to ask you, and this is something, the reason I'm asking you this, someone asked me this a day or so ago. When you're dealing with a spirit and this person in life was a real creepy little ass.
An SOB.
Yeah. And now that this person has become spirit, do you find more often than not they're still a creepy little ass, or do they once they get to the other side and they go, ooh, I better change my stuff around? So once they get there and see that they need to make a change, do they remain the creepy little asses that they were when we were trying to deal with them here on Earth?
All right. Well, here's my theory on that. If I run into one that was a mean SOB in life, All right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still a mean SOB in death. I think what happened with them was, you may not believe in heaven, hell, and all that, but you know about it. And when you die, you're like, I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying right here because I'm not going to get judged. I'm not going to hell. So I'm going to stay right here. They never cross over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the problem. They've never crossed over and found that forgiveness and made it to the next level. They're just still who they are. They haven't moved on to the next level or realm or whatever we want to call it, right? So they're just still who they were. So they're still a mean SOB that terrorized people or was mean to people, and they're still doing it. So you got to get those people to move on, or try to sometimes, or at least, get them in a position where they're not bothering the family that's there anymore. But I think that's, we talk about, if you believe in God and everything, you believe in free will, you have that choice. You can cross over or not. And I think people make that choice, or when they pass on, they make that choice. Some make it because I'm not ready to move on yet. I'm going to wait for my other loved one to cross, right, to come over. I'm going to be here when they get there. We'll go together. So there's different aspects. Think of it just like people and the different choices we make. And I think it's just the same thing. I think that's all. I really think, based on my own experiences with all this stuff, that's what's kind of going on. And some people they're more happier and content here, and they stay there. Whether they know they're dead or not, I don't know. I don't try to tell them that. Because you got to be careful. You got to be careful. It can be very traumatic, right? If they don't know they're dead, like, oh, I just told you you're dead. That's not good. You're probably really freaking out right now. But the reason I say that is because of another EVP that captured on the USS Constitution that we did back in 2010 for the Navy, and we kept getting these. One of our investigators saw the face of a little boy, a young boy, probably like 12, 13 years old. We caught as an EVP of him. We caught a really good EVP where he was kind of helping to give the tour on the second night. We were there, and the guy was the bosun's mate was with us, and he's talking about we're on the main gun deck, and we're up near where the kitchen area is. He goes, well, this is up here in the main front is where they call the manger area, and they kept live animals. He goes, because back in the 1800s, you didn't have refrigeration, so you kept live animals on the ship until you were ready to butcher them for your meal. So, he goes, oh, and they kept cows, pigs, chickens, and then you hear this young boy voice go, and a bear. And it's like, what? No, we didn't hear it at the time. We hear it after we're reviewing all the evidence. So we played that back for the captain and the officers during our reveal. And I'm across the table from the captain giving a thing, and he listens to that. And I see his jaw drop. He's like, and he looks back at his crew and he goes, Commodore Scrappy. And we're like, what are you talking about? Commodore Scrappy, a black bear cub they kept on the ship as a mascot in 1932. I'm like, holy crap, we didn't know that. We just played it. We thought it said and a bear or something like that because they had a really strong New England accent to it. And like, oh my God, seriously? Well, we do a little bit more research. Found out there was only 5 boys, and they were designated as boys, that's what they called them, on the ship, right, that died on the ship in the 1800s. 2 died of what they call bilious fever, which is dysentery. 1 drowned, and 2 fell from the mast. Now, they all died in the 1800s. So now my question is, how does a boy who died in the 1800s know about a black bear cub in 1932 if he's not still there? His consciousness is still there. He's still learning. But I think he stays there. And you hear the tone in the voice and all that, because we caught like 4 or 5 EVPs of him, and the tones are all the same. You can tell it's the same voice. And he seems kind of happy. I think he's happy to stay there because there's people. I mean, this is still an active naval ship, has been for all of its life, from 1700s right up to today. So there's always crew on there. There's always people coming to visit because it's a museum as well. And I think he likes it. So he's still running around on that ship. And actually, some of the crew have spotted him from time to time. And he's in that older style 1800s crew dress of a young boy. So he's still there, and he's pretty content, I think. So we don't move him on. We don't do anything. We just tell him who he is. So give him some orders. He seems to like to do stuff. He opened a door for the bosun's mate one night and freaked him out. He ran off the ship. We had to go get him. It's like, we can't be on the ship without you. He goes, that door just opened, didn't it? He gave a command. We had a door that was closing when we'd ask it to close. And he goes, well, did you ask the door to open? I'm like, no. I said, why don't you do it? So there's two doors to the officers' area. And one was closed and latched. I had closed it and, just latched it, not locked, but, the latch, you had to turn the doorknob to open it. And the other door was partway open. So he's looking at the other door as partway open. And he goes, open that door. You hear the latch, and I'm standing about 4 feet from me. You hear the latch turn, and the other door swung wide open. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And he's like, that door just opened, didn't it? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I got to go. And he ran off the ship.
Well, I will say that Commodore Scrappy is going to be one of the highlights of this show for sure.
Yes.
Scrappy. And yeah, actually, if you go on to the USS Constitution Museum website, you can find out about him there.
Wow. That's amazing. And since you said that, I have got to ask, we had an in-depth conversation last night on Wiregrass Haunts. What are your thoughts on earthbound children?
Well, it just all depends. I haven't run into too many. I've run into a few. Mm-hmm. But in those particular cases, I was working with my friend, psychic medium Becca Boyd, and she's never wanted to cross them over. And I did ask her once. I said, why? She goes, because they don't know they're dead, and she goes, they're very content. So she goes, I see no reason to move them on. Okay, that's a good reason, I guess. If they seem content and happy, and okay, they're not bothering anybody. Actually, in one case, they were a little bit. But she goes, approach it like any other child. Explain to it, because it was turning on the stove and doing crazy things, right? So it was like, that's stuff that could be dangerous. We told her, he said, look, leave that stuff alone. You can stay here. Don't touch it. Don't touch these things. And after we did that a few times at this particular location, it stopped happening. So yeah, but we left toys, some toys in there for, well, actually the owner did, because it's actually a bed and breakfast. I can't say where it is, but yeah, she just started leaving some stuff, and the toys would be moved from time to time, but she only seemed to stick to the toys now. So she left everything else alone, and things have been fine ever since. So, yeah, I think sometimes you just got to leave it as it is. I think sometimes they may move on in their own time, or, maybe somebody else will move them along. But if they're content, they don't seem frustrated or lost or anything like that. I know we feel sorry for them. It's like, oh my God, the poor child, and blah, 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 blah. And we should move them on. And sometimes I think, well, it depends on you got to do it a case by case basis. If they seem distraught, yeah, I would try to move them on or reconnect them with whoever it is they're trying to find. Yeah. As best.
Any thoughts, Mary?
That's tough to do.
Well, you know how I feel about, just because of my experience.
Yeah, that's the reason I brought it up.
Any time that I've run across. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that probably what you're fixing to say. Most people that I know feel like that if they're running across a child that appears to be an earthbound spirit that they're dealing with, and I don't necessarily believe this, but they believe that they're dealing with a demon that is masquerading as a child. I have seen that before. But I don't see the problem with earthbound children, where some people, including my darling Mary, does. Mary thinks that that's like a no-no. So it's just, I love to have different, opinions and thoughts. And that's the reason I asked Mary what she thought. So
what was your experience, Mary? Yeah, what happened with you?
Well, anytime that we ran across any kind of child spirit, it ended up being a demon masquerading itself, letting the people issue invitations to let it stay. And once they did that, the holy hell literally, happened.
Right.
Now, I believe, and like Stan had said it last night, do you believe that 90% are demons? Well, all my experience, yes. That 10%, like my first friend was a child spirit that didn't pass on. It was a little girl that drowned up the street from my house.
Right.
She even saved my life one time. So for me to say that was a demon just keeping me alive to torture me the rest of my life is kind of stupid.
Right.
I believe that any children that may be here may come here on a mission, to save someone that needs them, on any kind of emotional, mental level. I just don't feel that, because I'm very, very strong with Jesus and the way he loved children from scripture.
Right.
I can't believe that he would let them be in an existence here, like something tragic and they didn't move on. And, I don't see that happening.
Right. Well, that's why I say maybe they are there for a reason. I mean, I can tell you that. I mean, we don't know, right? They can't necessarily respond to us to tell us why either.
Right. It's one of those things we
but
won't
I can
know.
tell but I can tell you, like that boy that's on the Constitution, he's very happy there. He's loving it. He's still helping to give the tours, for God's sakes. And a bear.
Right,
Don't forget to tell him about the bear.
Not,
That was my outlook on that. He goes, and a bear. And to me, it was like, don't forget to tell him about the bear. You're forgetting about the bear, which would be very important to like a 12, 13-year-old boy. That'd be pretty cool, right? So,
Right. But he's not tied to tragedy, is what I'm saying.
I don't. So I mean, I don't know which of the 5 he was. I can't tell you which one happened or what happened to him. I can't tell you which one he was of those 5 that died on the ship. But he seems for the 2 nights we were on that ship and we interacted with him both nights. He seems pretty content there.
And also, you said what, 13?
He's either 12 or 13 because they've been seen. One of our investigators saw his face, and she goes, he was, old blonde, like 12 or 13-year-old boy. Best she could figure based on what he looked like, back in those days, some a little older than they were too. Even then, in those, but because life was a little harder. But that was her perspective on it about what his age was.
Because I know the Bible talks about the age of accountability. In the Jewish faith, at 13,
yes,
they're considered adults.
Okay, yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
and again, I want to say I wasn't trying to create dissension here. I love it.
I don't think we are.
I love it when people talk about different things and so on. So
yeah, no,
something that's very.
I think we're like just having a nice open discussion about what possibilities.
Yeah.
Here.
I mean, I respect his viewpoint, and in fact, I'm trying to think. Well, 13, that's probably the age of accountability, and he had a choice whether he wanted to stay or not. If it was a 5-year-old boy on that ship, I'd have to question.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have. Well, number one, they didn't take him at that age anyway, but they would take him at ages 7 and up. Because you got to remember, those days you didn't have a lot of choices for what your kids were going to do in life.
Right.
They could either apprentice someplace, they could work on a farm, or they could go in the military.
Yeah,
and a lot of people like military.
Or especially if it was an orphan child, they might end up on a ship or something.
Right.
Yeah, the Navy. No, you know what? The Navy didn't do that very often. They didn't inscript.
Okay, I was not thinking about the official Navy type thing.
Okay.
So
right, but yeah, they could end up on a merchant ship or something like. Yeah, that's true. That's true. They mostly, I think, with those kids, from everything I've read, they put them into like the workshops and stuff like that. Which was rough. That was rough life,
Oh yeah.
And they liked them for that because they were the ones that could work on the machinery easy. Because the machinery back then was tough to work on, but they were small enough and whatever, wiry enough to get in and work on the looms and do all this stuff. But a lot of times there was some bad accidents and they'd lose fingers or arms or whatever, it was not an easy job, and you didn't get paid either until you got enough. So, it's just different perspectives. Is there like demonic things out there that pretend to be children? Yes, I do believe that too. I mean, I believe that. I don't think all children we run into out there are just nice little children. But I can tell you a little technique to use where you can pick up on that. All right. Have you ever used divining rods?
No.
Right. Here's what I like to use divining rods for. They can give you real answers, but what they mostly do, you can feel the type of energy that's coming through to give a response. Right. You can just feel it. Okay, those copper rods act like we call it a lightning rod in a way, but you can feel the energy coming through. And I have run into demonic things with using those, and you can tell that something's not right, something's off. It's not what it's saying it is. And if you ask the right questions, you just ask random questions, it'll say yes to everything you ask, and that's when I know, you're full of it. You just tell me what I want.
Well, you're braver than I am because I would never use those.
Well, what it does is you're not really letting it into you. You're just feeling the energy that's coming through the rods. So it's not like it's channeling through you. It's just it's like you ever get too close to power lines? Sometimes you can feel that hum.
Yeah, I still have it in my brain.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's like you
Hmm.
can just feel that energy. It's not you're not necessarily asking it to come in. You're not doing that. All right. So you're just using it to feel the type of energy that's going on at a location. And you don't have to ask any questions at all. Sometimes you can just feel it. And if I think something's not right, I'll break those out and I'll start, just ask a few simple questions. Oh, are you the woman that died here or whatever? And I'll see if I get a yes, because people, oh, there's some woman that died here, but nobody can prove that. So I'll just start asking those questions. But you can feel the energy coming through them. You can feel when it's off, and then you can just boop. Okay, I put them down. You kind of know better what you're dealing with. It's just a trick I like to use, and not a trick, but a method I like to use from time to time. I don't do it all the time, but sometimes in some cases I'll use them, and just because something doesn't seem right.
Dave Clark said he peed on an electric fence once. Is it kind of that feeling?
Yeah, not as bad as that. I touched an electric fence once. I know what that felt like. Like I forgot it was electrified. It's like, oh damn. One of my friend's farms is like, hey Jack, don't touch it. Oh, geez,
Oh, I grew up on a farm. I'm real familiar with those electric fences.
That hurt.
Absolutely. Something that's very near and dear to my heart are kids who have abilities. I know that Chip Coffey back several years ago attempted to do a television show where they kind of mentored these kids and helped them, and that ended disastrously, which I thought was for very stupid reasons. But do you think that there should be some sort of an organized group or something that would be in place to help kids that are lost and don't know how to deal with these things? I don't know if you've been this way since you were a little child or not, but it certainly seems it would be helpful to a child that has these abilities and don't know how to deal with them or don't know what to do with it, for somebody to kind of lead them and guide them.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I had a mother who had some abilities, and she kind of knew it. She didn't use them like, I'm using mine now or whatever. But she used to talk to me about that stuff. We used to talk about that stuff all the time. So I kind of had somebody to guide me through of, just, be careful with this, be careful with that.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. She didn't know about, how to do this type of protection. She wasn't a psychic medium or anything like that.
Yeah.
She's just a mom raising her kids while my dad was working on the railroad,
Yeah.
But she had a lot of experiences, so we used to talk about it all the time. So in that kind of way, I had somebody who was open to that, right? So yeah, the problem is always going to be, sometimes you got parents that are open to it and maybe too open to it, and they try to encourage their kids, so now they want their kids to be, and it's like, no, don't do that. You gotta take it easy when they're little kids. You just want to listen to them and go, okay, all right, and just kind of guide them as best you can, because sometimes I think even those abilities can go away. And sometimes you're meant to have them, sometimes you're not meant to have them. You may have them for a while and then they'll kind of fade. But too many people want, I think today, with all the shows that are out there, a lot of people like to believe they're very special and they have these abilities and their kids have these abilities. And well, I'd like to sit down and talk to you first. So would a place, something like that, be helpful? I think what you're talking about would be helpful. And at least trying to guide people the right way. Does somebody really have abilities or not? And there is actually kind of a place that exists like that. Lilydale, I mean, is a spiritual place where what's his name? Tim Shaw used to live right up there when he was a kid. And he was involved in all that when he was a kid. And they used to, talk to him and show him stuff and everything else. And so he learned a lot that way. So, but yeah, I think it would be helpful to have at least people who are already in this field that have these abilities, maybe like Mary and I do, to talk. When we run into people who say, oh, I've got these abilities, or kids, I believe my son or daughter has these abilities. Okay, well, let's sit and just talk with you sometime, and see. Because maybe they want to believe they do, maybe they do, or maybe they really don't. And you got to sort that out first, right?
Yeah,
you got to figure that out first. So, I think it would be helpful. I don't think it would be harmful, as long as the people who are running it or doing it have the right agenda.
Yeah,
mind.
of course. And that was the thing that, and I talked to Chip Coffey about this. That was the thing about his show that he had on, was that people began thinking that he had ulterior motives and things, and that very disturbed him greatly to no end. Mary, you and I have never really talked about this. What are your thoughts? Do you think that would be a good idea for there to be some place to help kids to kind of lead and guide them along a little bit?
I think it would be, only because, for spiritual protection. Like, here it was me. I was this open beacon and had all these negative experiences that kind of tainted my, if you want to call it gift or not, for me. I grew up going, Mommy, do you see her? There's Melissa. And, what are you talking about? I thought I was going to be put away, but I think if you're taught to ground yourself and spiritually is important, your higher power, and then develop those skills, I think that's good. But putting them in a situation like in a haunted location and saying, okay, what do you feel? I think that's stupidity.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, because they don't, number one, they don't know how to handle it. Right. Yeah. They don't know they may not even understand what you're talking about. Number one, because they're just not at that stage yet. They know what they see on TV. Right. And that's what we talked about before. TV is TV. It's entertainment, and take it with a grain of salt. But, you need to prevent
spiritual abuse like you do child abuse,
Right. Exactly.
If someone's touching you in a way that doesn't feel good, say something.
That's
if
right.
If spiritually is touching you in a way that you don't feel good, say something.
Yeah.
That struck me as a very unique way to look at that. I never thought of it that way before. We're about 10 minutes away from the.
So,
it's a practical.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're about 10 minutes away from the break, and I want to slip in one more thing before we go to the break, and I think we got 10 minutes worth of discussion here. Mary and I are both Christians. We know how we think about this. I'm very interested. I have been doing an awful lot of reading lately, and I'm very interested to know Jack's thoughts about this and Mary's as well. There seems to be an overabundance of children being born into the world today that have all these memories of dying on the Titanic or dying in an airplane during World War II. These children are giving details that they have absolutely no way of knowing ahead of time. And since we are talking about the spiritual realm and the paranormal and so on, I'm very interested to know, because I am kind of leaning one way very, very heavily. And I have a feeling that the ghost of pastors past are going to come beat me over the head if I say it out loud. But I'm just very interested in your thoughts about this, Jack. What do you think? Do you think that there is something to that? I will tell you that I have been taught my entire lifetime in church that reincarnation is absolutely a big no-no, although it is not mentioned in the Bible. I don't think that because it's omitted does not mean that it's not possible. Right. So that's my thoughts about it. But I'm just asking, do you think that's possible? And have you ever had any experiences with anything like that?
I personally have not had any experiences with it. I'll start with that. I'm always of the realm. You're right. There's nothing really in the Bible that talks about it one way or the other. But I would say what I always say is keep an open mind. Keep an open mind to possibilities, because we don't know. And if somebody's trying to prove that people are coming back, there's things you would have to do that I really not sure you want to put the kids through it, because you'd have to try to interview them, talk to them, and connect it with that real person who existed, and how accurate is it to what really happened to them or their lives or things like that, which means you would have to then try to interview people who knew that person.
Yes.
All right. So there's a lot involved there. Where are these memories coming from? I don't know. I don't know. And is some of it fake? Is some of it real? That's also a possibility. But I always say keep an open mind, keep to the possibilities of anything. And I say that to people who come into lectures who are skeptics, or even just what's the better word for the word for people who just don't believe at all, period. They're
agnostic.
Agnostic. It's not even that. It's not even a
they're
but they're just totally, this is just BS. It's all BS. And they won't even listen to you. But I just say, hey, just try to keep an open mind. You're here with your friend. That's all I ask,
Well, because
you're not trying to convince anybody of anything. You're not. I said, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. But
Yeah,
just keep it in mind. And if you got a question, ask, and I'll try to answer it.
Yeah,
So
and
the
as
same thing with this, I mean, keep an open mind to it. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But
great.
do I believe it? I believe it's a possibility.
Yeah, that's great. Just like to say hi to Mark Nish in Glasgow. Just joined us in the chat room. Hi, Mark. As I said, starting out here, I've been doing an awful lot of reading about this. The stories that I have read, and there are many of them, the children seem to be very insistent upon wanting to get the information out. They want other people to know. They have led the way saying, hey, go talk to my sister, Christine. She's still alive. Go talk to her. She knows. And they will go talk to Christine. And Christine says, oh, my God, he knows everything about my brother. How does this little kid know this? So it's things of that nature that's kind of leading me toward to thinking that there could possibly be something here. And as I said, I know that goes against everything I have been taught in church since a little boy. And I know Mary's thoughts about this, I think. But I'm asking, what are your thoughts, Mary? Do you think that the possibility is there?
I don't believe. I mean, it could be. I don't have the answers to everything, but let me tell you how I think of it. Okay, so Jesus died on the cross, for our sins. Okay, so what is the point of reincarnation? We keep coming back till we get it right. There's no point.
Not necessarily. I don't necessarily believe we keep coming back. To me, it comes down to if there is an infinite number of souls or a finite number of souls. If they can, if at some point, the Hebrew people believe in the Gub, which is the place where the souls await to be born, and at some point they're going to run out of souls. If that's the case,
demand and supply is what you're saying.
If there are no more souls left to come down to earth, they reuse. Now that's I know that sounds ridiculous because we live in a disposable world, but if that's the case, that would make sense to me. That if there is a finite number of souls that God created, and they're just there, I can see that being a possibility. Now, please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to interject.
Oh, no. That's fine.
You meant to interrupt. That's all there was.
Yeah, he did. He's lying. And
I don't mean to interrupt you too, Mary. Now I'm going to cut you off because there's one other thing. I literally just thought about this while you guys were talking. Mm-hmm. Is it possible they're just coming back with a message? They're coming with a message for somebody else.
See, now that I could deal with.
So now I'm going to let you talk, Mary. I just had to throw that out.
No, that I could deal with. That makes more sense. But my other issue is in Hebrews 9:27, and I have this right off the top of my head.
Of course.
So I've done a lot of my own research, and it says, and I'm going to paraphrase most of it: people are destined to die once, and after that they face judgment. It doesn't say people die multiple times and then face one judgment. It's like one death, one judgment.
But if they come back, did they die?
Well, they had to have died to go someplace to come back, right?
I guess it depends on your definition of death. Because
I need a bong or something to understand this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we could go back even before all these things. Hey, if we really want to, we could go back before all these things were written, back to cavemen who also had souls. So where you want to go with that? Or if you believe in Adam and Eve, okay, and you believe all the people that actually lived, all right, which they actually lived a lot longer back then than we did today, right? Yeah. According to the Bible. So are those people, their souls coming back? I don't know.
Being recycled now.
We're being recycled. I don't
check your bodies for.
Why do I keep picturing?
Maybe certain souls are meant to come back for a reason, and others aren't. It's tough. It's a tough decision.
Why do I keep picturing Bill? Why do I keep picturing Bill Clinton going? It depends on what the definition of is. This is one of those things that's as interesting as all get out to sit around and talk about, but none of us really know.
No. We'll know when we get there. We'll know when we get there.
We'll know when we get there. Yeah.
What do we mean I got to go back? I don't want to go back. What do we mean I got to go back?
And a lot of the Bible is interpretation.
Yes, it is.
You could read that and you can interpret it completely different than me. Mm-hmm. And then you have somebody behind a pulpit telling you, well, this is how you have to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have people who have, that's interpreted by people.
I don't believe in religion. I believe in relationship.
Yeah, it's true. But there's people who study the Bible that's what they do, and interpretation of it and all that. So, they know a lot more than we do, in a way, in some sense. But
in some sense,
Quirion went to seminary, so he should know.
Well, I was just fixing to make a comment. I will tell you that the older I get, and I mean this, God bless my words, I'm telling you the truth. The older I get, the more I am willing to think anything. I'm willing to think, okay, that may be very well. I am at the point in my walk with Christ where I'm thinking, okay, God is God. He's the creator of all things. Jesus Christ is his only son. That's the core of my belief. Anything else is possible. It's kind of up for grabs. Anything else is. Those are the things that I believe. That's my core belief. And the older I get, the more willing I am to believe outlandish things that I've never believed before because I'm seeing them with my own eyes.
And that's it. You got to base it on your own experiences too.
Yes.
You can't ignore your own experiences.
That's great. And it's just, that's what we're doing here tonight. We're discussing our own experiences in our own light. And I love shows like this because it makes us think and it makes us wonder and it makes us look and delve into things more diligently. So that's great. Stan, I believe it is time for our break, partner. Are we ready? Okay, great. It is.
Sounds like about time.
After all that, he went.
Yeah. It is break time, and we've got a little bit of a special break tonight. Every Wednesday night at this time, we go to a little musical interlude that lasts maybe 7, 8, 9 minutes or something like that. Tonight, in honor of my brother who passed away yesterday, the music that we're playing tonight is dedicated to him, and I hope you enjoy it. It's probably stuff you're not used to listening to, but I hope you're listening. I hope you like it, and let us know in the chat room what you think. This is Terry Todd for Mary J. Our guest is Mr. Jack Kenna, and we will be back in just a few minutes. So stay tuned, get up, walk around, have yourself an adult beverage, whatever you prefer, and come back and see us in a few minutes. Thank you, and we'll be back.
Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve? Oh, we get what we deserve. And where down we go, oh, 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 where down we go, oh, 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 so where down we go, oh, 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 way down we go. Oh, you let your feet run wild. Time has come as we all go down. Yeah, but for the folk who my heart, do you dare to look them right in the eyes? Yeah. Oh, 'cause they will run you down to the door. Yeah, someday we'll run you down till you fall. And they will run you So way down we go. Way down we go.
My hands on myself. Take out dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now.
color in your cheeks? Do you ever get that feel that you can't shift, the tide that sticks around like summits in your teeth? Are there some aces up your sleeve? Have you no idea that you're in deep? I dreamt about you nearly every night this week. How many secrets can you keep? 'Cause there's this tune I found that makes me think of you somehow, and I play it on repeat until I fall asleep, spilling drinks on my settee. Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? Sad to see you go. Sorta hoping that you'd stay. Maybe we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you. Ever thought of calling when you're out of you? 'Cause I always do. Maybe I'm too busy being lost to fall for somebody new. Now I thought it through. Crawling back to you. So have you got the goods? Been wondering if your heart's still open, and if so, I wanna know what time it should. Simmer down and poker up. I'm sorry to interrupt, it's just I'm constantly on the cusp. I've tried and to kiss you. I don't know if you feel the same as I do. We could be together if you wanted to. Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? Sad to see you go. Was sorta hoping that you'd stay. And we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you. Ever thought of calling when you're out of you? 'Cause I always do. Maybe I'm too busy being lost to fall for somebody new. Now I thought it through. Crawling back to you. If this feeling flows both ways, sorta hoping that you'd stay. And we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Do I wanna know? Too busy being lost to fall. Sad to see you go. Ever thought of calling down? Do you want me crawling back to you?
And we are back on Voices Carry. This is Terry Todd, along with my lovely, talented co-host, Miss Mary J., and our guest tonight is Jack Kenna. How you doing, Mary? Did you make it back safely?
I made it back safely. I'm not in flames yet.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Before we get started back with the show, I just wanted to make a mention real quick, and I'm sorry I didn't at the beginning of the show. One of our friends, Art Bell, passed away this past week. And it's you can't say enough about Art Bell. One of my most favorite memories of a child is laying on my bed with an old AM radio sitting on my chest, listening to Art Bell on KOA out of Denver. And he was just an amazing human being, and I think that we do what we do because of him. I don't think if he had been around to do what he did, that many of us would not be doing what we're doing now. So I just couldn't let his passing go by without saying something. So, I hope you have a pleasant journey, Art, and you now know all the answers you were seeking. So, we're envious of you for that. So, but I just felt like I should say something. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So, hope you guys in the chat room enjoyed the music that are listening. From what I'm seeing, some of you did, some of you not quite so much, but I hope you did because it was kind of a special evening for us. And I know that Stan usually does a great job of the music. Stan and I have an affinity and a love for 80s rock, but I thought tonight we'd just do something a little bit different. So I hope you enjoyed it. Miss Mary, where were we? You know how I am after a break. It's like I've been on a 15-minute drunk or something. I don't remember anything. So where were we?
We were, I think, wrapping it up with reincarnation thoughts and when that could possibly be.
Okay.
But Jack was telling an interesting story while we were on break, and maybe he'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, if we'd like to jump back in with Jack's story, that'll be great, and we'll just kind of take it and go from there.
I was telling a story. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah. He had me going there for a minute. I was like, who was I listening to then?
Hey, it got to be an apparition. That's all I can tell you. No, I was telling you.
There you go.
It's actually, I'll repeat it for the audience. It was actually an investigation we're still working on, but so we go to and I knew there's something kind of really off at this residential location. So as I'm going down to the basement, the lights are all on in the basement because the client had just been down there, doing laundry or whatever, and she wanted the lights on so we go down there and start setting up some equipment in this area. And there's a doorway into another area of the basement at the far end, and again, all the lights are on. And as I come down the stairs, I look straight at that doorway, and there's this figure. This is the only way I can explain it. Now, it was halfway sticking out from the doorway. Looks like a gingerbread man. Okay. Now, think of rounded head.
Were you hungry, Jack?
I was chasing it with a glass of milk after. I know that. It's a little burnt since it was dark, though. But that's okay. Unless it was chocolate. Maybe it was chocolate. I don't know. But this is serious. It looked like it's the only way I can describe it. Perfectly rounded head, rounded arm, and in the part of the body. And it was like peeking around the doorway. And the minute I look at it, I saw it for at least a couple seconds. And as I moved towards it, it darted away. And I yelled to my other investigator, Sharon, who's right behind me. And I said, Sharon, come here. And we were going to go after her, and she banged her head coming down the stairs and almost knocked herself out.
Oh, no.
So I had to take care of her. But we did go running after it after. And, of course, you're not going to find anything. There's nothing there. But I saw this thing straight on. And I just wanted – now, I know what I believe it was based on different things that happened there. But if you saw something like that, what would you suspect it is?
Well, it's not like
human. It's in a human shape, but it's not human. I mean, it's not a human.
What
figure.
color was it?
Black, pure black. An absence of light. There was lights on, so it's a total absence of light.
Could it be a shadow figure? Because I've seen something similar to that.
Yeah, I think, well, it definitely is some type of shadow being figure, something like that. Mm-hmm. But I never talked about. I just want your guys' thoughts, and I'm going to tell you what I.
Could it be an elemental?
That's a possibility, but I do think this thing was a true demonic.
Oh, okay.
Because I talked to somebody else who's a demonologist after, and they said, well, typically you will with demonics, when you see them, you can get very, very, very basic shape, human shapes, but they can't form into necessarily a total human figure. So it's very possible because that's what it was. Because I also explained, I said, well, there's something else that happened before that. I said, when we're upstairs, I go walk into the client's bedroom where, she reported stuff falling off the shelves, things like that, and not feeling right and stuff. I get this sharp pain in the side of my temple, and then a overall really feeling of real anger. I mean, over intense anger. And I'm like, did you guys just have a fight in here? Was something going on? Did you have an argument with your son or whatever? And her son's was being affected. He's, they only moved in several weeks before. He starts being very angry towards everyone, totally out of character, right? Upset all the time, angry, fighting with people all the time for no reason. But I started to feel that way, and at the point where I became angry, and I'm like, my teams are like, Jackie, you're right. So I got to walk out of this room. And I walk out of that room, all goes away. So I actually think that particular one is a true demonic case, and we're dealing with something really, really negative there. I don't think I've run into elementals before, and I don't think that's what it was. It's a very and nobody stays in that house for very long. That was the other thing we did find out. Most people move out within very short periods of time, weeks, months. Nobody stays there. And the funny thing was, the client, when she first moved in, her neighbor comes up to her. She goes, oh, hi, nice to meet you. He goes, yeah. He goes, I hope that house is good to you. Just like that. And then there was a guy who was already living there. He goes, he moved out the next day. He goes, good luck with this house. So, and he was gone the next day. Yeah, crazy stuff. Oh, and you were talking about children before. So here's what happened to her. She's coming home from work. The owner of the place, because she rents it, had hired these guys to paint the house. They don't speak much English or whatever. But the one guy is going, lady, no, you can't do that. She's like, what are you talking about? The kid, the little boy, can't do that. You can't leave him alone. She's like, what are you talking about? Little boy up in the window waving at us. He goes, you can't leave him at home alone like that. No. She goes, I don't have any little kids. She goes, all my kids are, her youngest, her daughter is 15, right? And her sons are all older. She's got 3 kids. She goes, I don't have a little boy. And they're like, oh, she goes, besides, nobody's home. They're like, ooh, go. Yeah. So it goes back to what we were talking about before about it. Could this thing, it's presenting itself as a child? She'd seen it in the kitchen. Little boy is standing in one part of the kitchen, and then he just disappears. So, it goes back to, is that a real demonic? And by the way, the thing I saw was about the height of a child. It wasn't really tall. So did I see this thing as it was, and she's seeing it as something else? It's funny. We start having first a lot of, and I knew I could just sense something. It's like, this is kind of typical with a few demonic cases I've run into. Very few. I could count them on one hand, 3. But anytime I've run into something that's like that, you get a little bit of activity at the beginning, like it doesn't want you. There's certain things to try to leave, and then you get nothing the rest of the night. Until you start doing things to try to drive it out. Then you start to get activity again. So, and that happened to us that night when we were up in the attic doing some stuff up there. The whole attic started shaking. The team felt it. And I'm like, yep, I feel. And then they started hearing banging up there while I'm doing the things I'm doing. So I just wanted your guys' concept of what do you think that, had you ever seen anything like that yourself? That's the first time I ever saw anything like that. I never saw anything shaped like a gingerbread man. I wish I had my cup of milk with me.
I've never seen a gingerbread man shape.
That's the only way I can describe it, though. It's really the only way I can. I mean, it had no features, but it was shaped like that. Just very weird, very weird. So that's my story.
I have seen shadow figures that were shaped somewhat like a gingerbread, the featureless kind of rounded off corners and so on. One of the things that people need to be kind of alert about and watching for these days is there is it's becoming more and more prevalent. We've got to get Rosemary Ellen Guiley on the show to talk about this, but one of the things that is becoming more prevalent is we're dealing with the jinn that we've not had to deal with before. And they're coming out of the Middle East and they're kind of spreading out over the world. And some of the references I've seen to the jinn are in rounded off features like that. So that I suppose that might be a possibility. They are a new type of demon that we've never had to deal with before in this part of the world.
Oh, no, that's interesting. Go ahead, Terry. I'm tell you something.
I'm just going to say they are very, very frightening. They're very hard to get rid of, and it's something that, like I said, the only person I'm aware of who's doing any serious work with the jinn is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and she's just recently put out a few books dealing with that, trying to get people educated about it. But that's something to think about at least. So.
No, and I think it almost makes sense because you think of all the Middle Eastern people that are immigrating here.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But interestingly enough, in that house, I mean, the people her neighbors now who just moved in, they're Muslim and they came over from the Middle East.
Oh,
So did it come with them? Maybe this is something else unrelated to the other experiences we were having that night. I didn't think about that. So I mean, I met the woman, her neighbor. Very nice lady, very, very pleasant to us and stuff like that. Matter of fact, the reason I met her is right after I chased after that thing, she was, I hear her door open up from her entrance to the basement, and she's coming down to do laundry. The poor woman's in her nightgown and stuff. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. We're friends at Tammy's, and, sorry. We were just, she's showing us around the place. I didn't tell her what we were doing, But, she's like, oh, okay. All right, yeah. So poor lady. But yeah, I mean, that could be that. I didn't think of it.
I know.
That didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah, I know a group right now that recently was working on a case over in Georgia, and they talked with me about it, and I knew immediately what they were talking about. They were dealing with the jinn. The people who owned the house were Muslims from the Middle East. They had rented the house out to another family and gone back to the Middle East.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people in the house are dealing with these problems. And I told the people, and I even looked it up. I got, the correct wording. I knew what I was talking about.
Right.
And so I told them, I said, this is what you're dealing with. And you're full of crap. You don't know what, this is not anything, And judging from what they told me, I've read, Rosemary Ellen Guiley's books. I know what she was talking about. And, but I don't know how that came about. The people just totally dismissed it and went on their way. So I'm assuming the people that live in the house are still having to deal with this.
Yeah, possibly, or it went with them, or who knows? I mean, but yeah, you got to consider that because you've got a lot of, different religious beliefs moving, coming to this country now, and not that they weren't here before, but more of them, and more types of people, and more, you're getting the whole, gambit of people and different belief systems within those systems. So, sure, why not? Why couldn't it happen? I mean, I'm sure we brought stuff with us from when our people came over and settled here from Europe. They may have brought stuff with them because of their belief systems and stuff. So why not? Yeah, why not? Yeah, it can happen. And, these things can travel anywhere. They're not bound by,
time and space. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Physics, the laws of physics don't necessarily apply. So,
For sure.
Yeah. So why not? Yeah, I can believe that. I'll have to look into that and see. I'll have to read more on that because that didn't even dawn on me. That's why I'm glad I brought it up. And this is why I like talking to other people and running things, because you may have a thought on something that didn't even cross my mind. And that didn't even cross my mind. So yeah, I'm gonna look up some stuff about the jinn and find out more about that because it's something I've never had to deal with and I've never really looked into it. So now I got to listen to it.
And I truly believe any paranormal group today that does investigations need to be reading up on this because it is becoming more and more prevalent. And most people would have no idea what they're dealing with. And from what I understand, dealing with the jinn is completely different than dealing to the Catholic Church with a regular demonic or something. It's totally different. So.
It's a whole different belief system, and it's a whole different. Yeah, you got to go with whatever, and that's why I keep an open mind. I tell you I'm Roman Catholic and all that, but I keep an open mind because in this field you can be dealing with multiple types of belief systems and religions and what somebody else believes. I had a case where I had both a Catholic and Jewish together in one house. They were married. So, and that can cause just chaos alone in itself unless they, can make it work, and that's what I talked to them about too with that particular case. Okay, why don't you, she was Jewish and he's Roman Catholic, and okay, so, do you each go to each other's, things once in a while? No. I go alone, and I go alone. Well, why don't you switch every other week? You know, and it's just out of respect. You know, you don't have to believe it, but out of respect to your partner, go.
Yeah.
You know, and learn a little more about what their belief system is. You don't have to join. You don't have to just go with them to be there with them. You know, and they're like, I never thought of that, and so they started doing it, and it's actually helped to them. So.
Absolutely.
You know, so sometimes it just takes a stranger coming in and say, "Have you thought about doing this?" And they listen. People. Well, that's one thing I have found. People will listen to us strangers, and when we get involved with paranormal cases, before they'll listen to their family or friends who tell them the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I don't know why that is. And I ask them that. I actually ask them that. Why didn't you listen to that? Well, I didn't think they knew anything. Well, it doesn't mean, they don't. Sometimes it's just, or I didn't want to talk to them about it because they'll think I'm nuts or whatever. You got to talk to somebody. I guess that's part of what we're here for. So, you do that.
For sure. Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll tell you things that they've been through in their lives they've never told anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this, as you know, some of this stuff can be really bad.
Oh, absolutely.
They've never dealt with it because we like for our team, we have an 11-page form. We have people fill out, send back to us before we will go to investigate. I'll talk to them on the phone all they want, but if you want me to come out, because I ain't charging you nothing, if you want to make that 3-4 hour drive, you better fill that form out. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
And tell me as much as you can, and they will tell you their whole life story. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, did you ever tell anybody this happened? Nope. Okay, I think you better, if you talk to a psychiatrist about it. No, I think you better. Yeah. And because it's like, you're talking about things like rape by a family member, rape, by somebody else, or, drug addictions that they somehow, either managed to get through or whatever, but they really never totally dealt with it, so it could come back, and you got to get help. So I can, and what I've usually found in all these cases, people fill it out and send it right back to you. There is a haunting going on, and that's only the part of it. But I think what draws that is the negativity they have in their lives. Mm-hmm. These negative things, or these things are drawn to this negative energy to feed off of it, whatever you want to call it. But there's a haunting going on. We see things, we experience it in every single case where they've sent that form back, every single one. Wow. So I think there is a connection there. And then once they start dealing with their real issues, their life starts turning around and starts getting better, and that helps, and that also makes kind of the hauntings begin to go away. We do what we can, right? If you're just dealing with spirits, you do the saging, you try to do cleansings, and you even cleanse them, and you do all the different other things in worst cases, prayer and this and that. You do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. But I always tell them, unless you turn your life around, this is not going to end. It's going to keep coming back. Mm-hmm. And I can't keep spending every weekend here. So we have a few cases. I've still been working with people for a couple, 2-3 years, and that's just to keep them on track. We don't there every weekend or anything like that, but we talk to them every few months or whatever, and they touch base, and you become like a friend to them, and in some cases almost like a counselor. So I think they charge for that? I don't know.
I remember those
services. I don't know. Yeah. No, but I don't. I'm joking about that. But you try to do these things, and it is rewarding when you do see people's lives starting to turn around, though, and things get better for them. And that's the real reason we do it. That's the real reason I do it.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the reason, I go on these shows and we talk about these stories and these hauntings, because to let people know you can turn things around,
You can get better,
Yeah. And we don't talk specifically about the individuals' names or anything like that. And they know we have to get their permission and all that. Yeah. But they like to, if you could tell somebody kind of what we've been through and that it can get better. Yeah, that's great. I don't necessarily want to do it myself, they tell us, but if you would do that, that's great, so it's, and that's part of the reason I like to do the show. It's think of it as outreach, And then they get to me, and then they do reach out to me on Facebook or email or wherever.
Yeah, that's right.
And
we did have a question in the chat room. Teresa said, "Isn't the jinn the same as a demon, just a different name in a different culture?" Absolutely not.
no,
The jinn is an entirely different breed of creature from what we're used to dealing with when we talk about normal demonics here. The jinn, I hate. No, I'm not going to use that word. The story behind our demons is that they were fallen angels and all that. The jinn were created. They're created beings, I guess, much like an angel, except that they were created from smoke and fire, and by the old Muslim hoodoo people or whatever. I don't know what they're. I don't know the exact wording, but. The people who did the evil things, like the witches and people like that, involved with the Muslim religion, created these jinn out of smoke and fire, and they are a completely different animal than any kind of demon that we've ever had to deal with in this country. I have extensive dealings with demons over the years, and I would rather face again what I've already faced than go against the jinn, just simply because it is something new and different and more severe than what we're accustomed to dealing with. And that's why I keep telling people, learn about it, read about it, get Rosemary Ellen Guiley's books and read about the jinn, and you'll understand. You'll have a better feeling and understanding about what's going on. Right. And I have come face to face on 3 to 4 different occasions with a full-fledged, full-body demon. And a couple of times on the shows when it's been appropriate, I've described to people and stuff. I know names that I do not speak. I know things that I will not talk about, but I have described them just so that people have an idea of what you're dealing with. But and I think that's one thing that is a kind of a bad negative influence dealing with the jinn, is that most people just think, oh, it's just a common garden variety demon, and then they're not. They're much, much more sneaky. If you can picture something more sneaky than a demon we're used to dealing with, these things are. And as I said, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, get her book. She spent the last 25 years studying the jinn. She's taken, I don't know how many trips to the Middle East to get information and historical facts and things. So, but that would be my advice to any paranormal investigator, is to get those books by Rosemary Ellen Guiley, read up about the jinn, and get familiar with it, because you will at some point in the future probably come face to face with something you're not used to dealing with. So that's my little speech for tonight. So, but it's very important, and anybody involved with that needs to get. Okay.
Yeah, I threw you off. Okay, keep going.
No, that's fine. I will do that.
I typed Terry something just in case people know. I don't know. Okay. I totally threw him off. I just don't.
No problem. I'll be happy to do that. But any paranormal investigator in the country today needs to be reading up on the jinn. And also, I noticed there's kind of a thing on the spelling. It's called the correct spelling for the jinn is D-J-I-N-N. And it's that's also where the genie came from. The genies in the bottle were created by the jinn. So they're like the jinn or the head of the genies and so on. I mean, it's a whole new culture, but that is something you look at, because you never know.
Right. So Terry, if I get you right, the jinn were actually created by people.
Yes.
To do their evil bidding or negative things or evil things on their behalf. Then
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That's why I thought the understanding was. So this is not something that was created by a god or whatever. It's created by people for negative reasons.
That's correct, and it has to do with and again, I'm trying to draw on my memory banks here. If I'm correct, and I'm almost certain I am, they were created by like what we would probably call a witch doctor or something like that,
right?
That wanted to get vengeance on people. And today in the Muslim religion, if you want to do harm to your enemy, you call it the jinn and say, "Go get them," type thing.
Right. Yeah, they're strictly created for a negative purpose.
Absolutely.
And they can have their own agenda after, which kind of makes them in some ways more dangerous than even a demonic.
Absolutely.
Because a demonic has a specific agenda, and it's pretty much the same agenda all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But anyway, that's my little thing tonight. And as I said, I think any paranormal investigator needs to be reading up on it, because I think as they become more prevalent in this country, and I mean they are spreading like wildfire through Europe and England and Scotland, where the Muslim people are kind of moving in and taking over, and and that is, that's kind of, and I'm not being racist here or anything, but that's just part of the culture. That's kind of what they do. And I have friends that live in England and overseas and in Europe and things, and it's like they're telling me all the time things that is going on over there. I can't believe the mayor of London, England, is a Muslim. I mean, that just blows my mind. But
yeah, it is crazy. I mean, it is. Well, I don't know if it's crazy, but it's something you would never have expected. Yeah. But then again, I mean, it's like and I tell people it's like any other religion. There's extremist sides to things, and there's, more moderate side to things. And I think that's true even in those religions, because, not everybody's out to wipe everybody out. But that could be why, I mean, with regards to terrorism and those extremist sides, that could be where the jinn originally came from. And that's why those groups seem to be so negative. It's the negative side of things. Because let's face it, I mean, I know Muslims who are very good, very nice people. They don't want any problems for anybody, and I've known them for years. I'm not saying they're people I haven't known for a long time, and they're not like that. And they don't care for it either, because it just makes them all look bad. And that's not the case. So, you got to take everything with a perspective on it. Just like, there's a time when, Christians were all hated because of things they were doing, but not all Christians believed in what some of their other Christians were doing. So, it's like anything else, right? And it still goes on today. I mean, even and our friend Mark Nish in Glasgow just sent a message in the chat room, and it says it's like the barman. I'm not sure. The barman is something I'm not familiar with. Are either one of you guys? No, I never heard that. No, it's a new one. But he lives in Scotland, but we were talking about the gin, and he said it's like the barman. So. Oh, yeah, get your gin at the bar. Maybe that's where he was going with that. I don't know. Maybe so. Look at the barman, get your gin. Yeah. But Mark, if you'd like to elaborate on that, please do so, because I'm interested in the barman. So. Yeah. Well, Mary, how are you doing? Are you enjoying this show? Do you have anything you'd like to spring on Jack? And
no, I'm totally enjoying this show.
It is a great show.
My mind is being challenged. My belief system's being challenged. That's what it's all about. Oh, we're not challenging it. We're just discussing it. That's I'm
trying to warp it a little,
Why am I thinking this way?
Yeah,
we're
not
any sense. Am I really that set in that way? And
you could
be.
It's
good when you ask yourself questions,
Yeah, well, it is. So. Yeah. It's I don't think it's a challenge. I think it's just reopening your perspective on things. And I always try to just keep an open mind about things as much as I can. But there's some things that I'm like, no, I'm not buying that. And it's just not what I believe. But then there's I got to go. Well, like, the reincarnation thing. Look, I don't know. So I'm up in the air on that one. And is it possible? Hey, to me, I guess anything's possible. Is that's what's really going on? I don't know. I'll tell you when I get there. I'll try to come back and let you know. It's like, hey, I got reincarnated.
And don't come back as a gingerbread man.
Nah, I don't want to be eaten.
With a big glass of milk.
I'm on a cookie sheet. What the hell? This is not good.
That would be a fitting end to me, the diabetic. Like a gingerbread cookie.
Yeah. Oh, Mark just sent another message, and he said the psychiatrist aspect of the stranger. Can you see that, Mary? Is it psychiatrist?
Oh, let me put the glasses on here.
Is he saying psychiatrist?
The psychiatrist aspect of the stranger.
Not sure what he means.
I don't know. That was about as clear as mud to me. But I'm a little dense. Sorry about the spelling.
No problem, Mark. I think we figured it out, but it's just kind of interesting that.
I still don't get it, Mark. It could be me, and it could be my blonde roots coming out, but I don't get it.
I'm lost on that one. I'm lost. I would need a little bit more information. I have my own understanding of what maybe that means, but I could be wrong. So,
well, see, I told Jack tonight that these shows sometimes take on a life of their own. I believe this one has, and that's what I love about it. I mean, it's I want every show to be different, and
But if any of those out there that are writing that stuff, they want to just expand on it more and message us about it. I mean, message me directly about it.
Okay, Mark, I get it now. Like a bartender telling someone your problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
That was much more simpler than we thought.
I was trying to read
a whole
some deep
direction
spiritual thing going on.
Nice.
Oh no, I cannot believe what Anna Jo said. My wife wrote, "Oh no, maybe the gingerbread man."
The gingerbread man.
Gingerbread.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why he looks like he's a gingerbread man. Yeah. He's a gin man.
Right. Gracious.
Oh god, it's really going downhill now. Okay. He's well with regards to what your listener there said. Yeah, it is like being a bartender. You know, they come in, they tell you all their problems, and I know where he's coming from with that now. Yeah, and it is. Yeah, you know, they just tell you everything. Yeah, because they don't want to tell anybody else. Well, they can tell you because you're not going to really tell anybody. And I don't. God forbid, I don't. Yeah. But because it's kept confidential. But,
I was making the mistake of connecting the barman with the gin, and that's
earlier. What we were talking about clients telling us all these things and all that. Yeah.
But Mark, it wasn't your problem; it was mine. I was reading it wrong into the wrong aspect.
It was all of ours. Yeah.
Jim, we had warp speed into something else.
Yeah, we just keep rolling along, Mark. Don't worry about it. We'll catch up eventually.
Nothing to see here, people. Move along.
Move along.
Tricia Jate said graveyard shift gas station clerk too. Yeah, that's nothing compared to an overnight radio disc jockey. Oh my God, you would not believe the stories that I used to hear. But
I can only imagine.
But dealing with the paranormal is basically what we do here. But we try to go into other areas as well. And there's so much. I happen to believe that everything that we call paranormal is related. There's some connecting thread to everything that we call paranormal. UFOs, Bigfoot, spirits, ghosts, portals. I think that there's all a connection there. Do you see things that way, Jack?
In a large sense, yes, and just in that, as far as things go, we're all connected. In some way, shape, or form. Are all these things connected as far as ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs? I don't think there's any real direct connection there. There are things we call paranormal just because we have a lack of a better term for it. I mean, it's like looking into the sciences and saying, well, physics is directly related to engineering, and it's not always typically the case depending on what you're talking about there. There is connections, but not always directly related. So I don't think like ghosts are related to UFOs, right? You know what I'm saying? I don't think UFOs are coming down and bringing ghosts to us or things like that. I think they can be. I think sometimes a UFO case can be misinterpreted as a haunting because some aspects can be similar. Things just happening that nobody can understand. But then as you start looking deeper into it, you'll find other things going on that you really can't explain that are much more physical and lack of time and things like that relate more to possible abductions or other things. Now that's not ghosts. I don't think that's related there at all. Same thing for Bigfoot. I know there's people who say, well, no, Bigfoots are directly related to UFOs and people have seen them. Look, I can't tell you that. I don't believe that personally, based on my own. And I actually, to be honest with you, I've had experiences with all three. No, I have not been abducted, but I have seen things up I used to have a fishing camp. We used to have a fishing camp way up in the boonies of Quebec, out in the middle of freaking nowhere. You had to take a float plane to get in. We were actually just like a mile from the 52nd parallel. It was closer to Goose Bay than it was to where I flew into. And I saw things. 5 of us saw these things in the sky. We knew they weren't satellites. We see satellites every night up there. That's how clear it is.
Mm-hmm.
These things did not act like satellites. They did not move like satellites. I don't know what they are. All I can tell you is they were UFOs, unidentified flying objects. They shot straight down. They shot straight up. We don't have anything. I mean, I work with the military. We don't have anything that moves like that.
Mm-hmm.
Gyrating in the middle of the sky, and they would just look like dots of light to us. But they were up over like the Goose Bay. There's a big storm, electrical storm going on. They seem to be hovering around that storm, almost like they're collecting energy or something. So I've seen things like that. I did see a Bigfoot. At least that's what my friend Steve Culls confirmed for me many years ago. Just took a day off to go fishing one time, and went to my usual spot in the Kinderhook Creek, and nobody's up there because it's early morning and everybody else is off at work and I'm not. So, and it was quiet. I was just going to do some trout fishing, and I walked down to this spot, and I look across the creek, which is about, I don't know, probably at least 30 yards across, and about 25 yards down, and I see this thing leaning over drinking water, and I'm like, that's not a bear. What the hell's that? And it's all brown, and then it stands up on two legs and looks at me, and I'm like, oh shit. What the hell is that? Pardon my French there. And I just stared at it, and for, I don't know, at least 10, 15 seconds, and it turns around and walks into the woods on the other side. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I stayed there and actually fished for about a half hour until I kind of felt like something was really watching me, and I'm like, I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to leave. So I left. So, I mean, it didn't scare me, it didn't frighten me. I just wasn't really sure what the heck I was looking at. I told this to my friend Steve Culls. He's known as the Squatch Detective. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's been on a few different shows and stuff. Yeah, Steve's a good guy. And I met him just 2 years ago, and I was telling him he's a local. He's not far from me. He's kind of a neighbor. And I was telling him about it. He goes, Jack, how big was this thing? I said, oh, maybe 6 foot. It wasn't really tall. I said, maybe 6 foot. He goes, what color was it? Brown. I said, it was all brown, all covered in brown hair. And he goes, where did you see it? I said, Kinderhook Creek in this area, not far from Lions Lake. He goes, you saw the Kinderhook creature. And I told him when, and because he asked me, well, when did you see it? I said, it was like back in the early 90s, whatever. And he's like, you saw the Kinderhook creature. He goes, there was spottings of it for about 3 years right around there. He goes, you saw it. I'm like, no, I didn't really. And to this day, I would say, I don't really know what I saw. He goes, you keep saying that. He goes, but you know what you saw. I said, look, I can tell you what I saw. Is that a Bigfoot? I don't know. He goes, it is. He goes, that's what it was. So, I mean, I've had these experiences, and they're few and far between, but I don't think, like you're saying, back to, are they all connected? I don't think directly. No, okay. I think they're their own things. But I think we lump it into the paranormal, but I think things are connected in that, all energy is connected. All things are connected. Are UFOs aliens, or are they something else, from our future or from someplace else? Everything's possible. I mean, to me, anything's possible. We don't know yet.
Absolutely.
So I keep an open mind to it. Do I believe aliens exist? Yeah, I do. Are they coming here yet? I don't know. But I'm reserving my judgment on that one yet. But yeah, that's my perspective. I kind of took a long way about answering your question, but that's my perspective on it. Yeah.
That's great. I was talking to someone here recently, and they said they used the word preternatural. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, paranormal. And then why in the heck did you say paranormal then?
Preternatural. Yeah, it's another term.
Yeah. Got a question in the chat room. Wants to know, what are Jack's thoughts on crop circles?
I like Stan's answer.
Somebody picked the crops. In a weird pattern.
Stan said drunk farmers.
Yeah, drug farmers. Yeah. I could say this about them. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of them, but I know some they have debunked and some they haven't been able to. So what does that mean? I still think there's things about our own Earth that we don't totally understand yet. Could they be related to UFOs? It's possible. Or are they just related to energies within our own Earth that have certain effects sometimes on different areas? People have seen these lights, supposedly with them, at times. So is it just energy from the Earth? I can tell you this. I know, and it's scientific fact, like during earthquakes, there's earthquake lights that are released out of the Earth that are caused by the shifting of the plates and the friction between them. So, and I actually caught those during an investigation one time. Because we had an earthquake happen while we were on that investigation. Just prior to, we honest to God, we caught these odd light anomalies on the DVR system. And I play that at some of my lectures. And then a few minutes later is when the earthquake occurred. We also saw bright flashes of light, which was what the family was reporting. All, again, just before this earthquake occurred. So I know that's, a natural phenomenon. These what they call earthquake lights. I've experienced those, and our whole team did. So it's could it be that? Could it be just something related to the Earth that does this and causes these odd patterns at time? I don't know. It's a possibility. Is it UFOs? It's a possibility. Is it just drunk farmers? That's definitely a possibility.
I think
that has been proven at times. Yeah.
That's probably Stan's prevalent answer here. So I think that's probably we'll all go with drunk farmers for tonight.
Drunk farmers.
That works.
Yeah. It looks like we are I can't believe this, but we are just out of time. I mean, it's amazing how these 2 hours have went by so fast. Jack, it has been a tremendous pleasure to have you on tonight. I have thoroughly enjoyed this show.
Well, thank you.
It is our pleasure. Mary, you want to say anything to Jack?
Yeah, I totally enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and now I'm going to stalk you on Facebook.
Oh, you can do that. That's okay. A lot of people are starting to stalk me. That's okay. I don't mind being stalked. It's okay.
Right.
But we got to talk. So we got to talk another time.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
and I hope you'll come back and see us again. Yeah. And just a reminder that you're listening to Voices Carry on the Voices Carry Radio Network. This is Terry Todd along with Mary J. And I just want to remind you that death is not the end of existence, nor is it something to be feared. There is life beyond the physical world. We ask you to stay tuned with us again next week. Our guest will be Carrie Northey, a funeral director. That'll be fun. And Teresa said she really enjoyed tonight's show. Thank you. I did too. I thought it was great. You guys join us next week when Carrie Northey will be here. We're going to talk about the funeral industry, death, dying, and all the good stuff that goes with that. Thank you for being with us. God bless you. And we'll join you again right here next week on Voices Carry on the Spreaker Radio Network. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks, Jack. We appreciate it. Hope you'll come back.
Anytime.
You bet. Good night.
Night.
Good night. Good night.
like it's laughing at me. When copycats and the lazy brats are the last thing I want to see. No. My enemy is a friend of mine in a friendly place to be seen.